Shalom from Jerusalem, Israel. This is TV7's Israel at War update. As we're set to deliberate the latest here in the region, particularly when it comes to implications for Israel, Europe, the United States, today we mark day 539 since the horrendous massacres that were committed on October 7th of 2023 by the Islamist Hamas and its kin in the Gaza Strip. And without further ado, I will immediately turn to introduce our panelists for today, to include Mr. Marshall Billingsley, formerly an Assistant Secretary General of NATO, as well as an Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for countering terror financing. Next to him, Colonel in Reserve Reuven Ben Shalom, who is a cross-cultural strategist, a pilot in his former, while still wearing uniform, as well as a long list of other positions. And last but not least, Brigadier General in Reserve Yaron Rosen, who formerly served as an IDF Chief of Cyber Staff, a fighter pilot as well as a Israel Air Force commander. And it's a pleasure to have all three of you with us today. This morning, we saw a rocket fire launched from Lebanese territory in the direction of Israel's northern communities. One was intercepted, while the other projectile landed in Lebanese territory. This prompted Israel to respond forcefully towards the Iranian proxy Hezbollah. Mr. Billingsley, how should we look at this?
You should look at it as the simple grim reality that Hezbollah remains a threat. While they have been substantially degraded, they are by no means eliminated as a terror apparatus. And the idea that they need to take claim for every attack that they conduct is ridiculous. Hezbollah has never taken responsibility, for instance, for the EMEA bombing in Argentina or many of the other terrorist activities that they've conducted. So the Israeli response was proportionate and completely appropriate, in my view.
Colonel Ben Shalom, your take on this, and also to put into context, French President Emmanuel Macron intends to call President Donald Trump and complain about this, saying it's unacceptable that Israel reacted against Lebanon the way it did, in light of the fact that Hezbollah, as mentioned, did not claim responsibility for the attack, which doesn't really make sense to me, this statement.
Well, that kind of rhetoric towards Israel will do nothing. It's pointless. It's just political. Actually, every rhetoric and every effort that would be exerted towards Lebanon could have a physical change on the ground, and that's where the effort should go. As far as what the IDF did today, I think it's just very consistent with the new policy. It's being declared very clearly. It's clear that the government and the IDF also want to demonstrate that when we say there's a new equation now, that we plan to implement it. So what we did today was very consistent, also very precise, very careful, a legitimate military target. So I don't think there's such a big issue around what happened today.
Thank you, Colonel Ben Shalom. General Rosen, your take on this, also from a strategic perspective, considering the fact that there is an interest, not only in Israel, but also in the United States and in Europe, that Lebanon stabilizes. Naturally, the current state of that country is not very favorable, to say the least.
Yeah, projection of power right now in the Middle East has a very important role in how the new Middle East is shaping. So when the United States attacks in Yemen, after it says and asks politely somehow that the Houthis stop interfering with international freedom of navigation, and when Israel says exactly as Reuven explained what it says, now transforming that or turning that into action, from words to action, is the very point of deterrence. Now, Lebanon is in the process of shaping itself. Syria is in the place of shaping itself. Everything reflects to wider circles. So just as the attacks in Yemen are talking to the Houthis, but are also talking to the Iranians, the attacks in Beirut are on Hezbollah, legitimate targets, telling them what needs to be told, that Israel has been attacked, and that is the counterattack. But it's also talking to Al-Julani in Syria and telling him how Israel acts when it says it will act. So everything has a first and a second effect, which we need to understand now, because all these countries are really shaping themselves right now.
We need to highlight that Defense Minister Israel Katz here in Israel made it clear immediately after the rocket fire that the fate of the northern communities of Israel will be the same fate as in Beirut. Dahya is namely the stronghold of Hezbollah in southern Beirut, and therefore what was targeted, according to the IDF spokesperson's unit, was the Hezbollah aerial unit 127, which includes unmanned aerial vehicles and other types of aerial munitions. Now, if we move to our next theater, you already mentioned Syria. Marshal Billingsley, when we're talking about Syria, the defense minister of Lebanon traveled to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where he met, under the auspices of the Saudis, his HTS counterpart, the Al-Qaeda affiliate that is seeking to consolidate its power in Damascus, during the course of which they signed a certain MOU that initially basically solidifies an arrangement on border demarcation between the two countries, something that has been open-ended for years, but is it legitimate, considering the fact that HTS has not yet consolidated its power under the current circumstances, where much of Syria remains still free from this regime?
Well, in terms of the border demarcation, I think that is a positive step, but it's clearly intended by Al-Qaeda Nusra Front to suggest that they are far more than the proto-state that they are currently, since, as you point out, they don't in fact have complete control over the country. How that group evolves and whether they evolve away from their radical jihadi ideology remains to be seen. It's certainly far too early to take comfort in the fact that they are proclaiming themselves now somewhat more reformed in their ideology. Only time will tell.
Do you see the United States establishing some type of overture, despite the fact that what we hear, at least from the Trump team's senior echelons, that they're very skeptical with regard to this regime?
And they should be. And I don't know that any kind of direct overture at this stage is necessary or appropriate. Perhaps such things could be accomplished through intelligence channels. But remember that the United States is talking very, very aggressively with Turkey, with the government of Turkey, and with the Turks, who are fundamentally behind this shift to remove Assad and to emplace HTS.
Absolutely. The Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, formerly the director of the MIT intelligence agency of Turkey, just met with his American counterpart, Marco Rubio, during the course of which they did discuss the Syrian file, but they also discussed, of course, their aspirations to acquire F-16s and F-35s. And the latter aircraft was shunned from Turkey after it decided to go for the Russian S-400 aerial defense missile system, something that, of course, the United States and NATO cannot afford, having interoperated with the various systems of Western countries. Now, Colonel Ben Shalom, from an Israeli perspective, Israel is naturally also very skeptical about the HTS, considering the fact that in its former format or formation, it was called Jabhat al-Nusra and operated along the border with Israel on the Golan Heights. And just to put it clear for our viewers, Jabhat al-Nusra, in essence, means the Brigades for the Liberation of the Entire Levant. So they put in their name their intention of conquering Israel, conquering Jordan, and conquering all those countries, something that speaks for itself.
I think that the way we talk about it, our rhetoric should be very careful and diplomatic in a way, even though our actions, especially after October 7th, have to be very calculated and very careful. When I say careful, I mean that even great powers that go somewhere and think they can do regime change or tell the people how to live, etc., that usually doesn't work. And here we have an organization that suddenly wears suits and uses terminology, and we're supposed to think that everything changed. So certainly not. But I think we have to simultaneously be optimistic and give it a chance, yet do the right things militarily, operationally. And you see what Israel's doing. After October 7th, our national security strategy changed fundamentally. We're not going to take chances, at least not in the next few years, right? If something emerges, we're going to take it out. And in a frontier like Syria now, if there's a threat there that could fall in the wrong hands, we're going to take it out. Never mind who's going to be the next regime. What we're doing now is mostly looking out for our interests, maintaining this quiet border, which is why we have boots on the ground inside of Syria, which is pretty incredible. All the arenas around us, you can see forward deployment of IDF soldiers on the ground, even inside Lebanon, Syria, and of course in Gaza.
Indeed. General Hossein, your take on that?
Yeah, I think we need to look at the third level of what's going on here, and that is the Turkish influence, if you will, from the north that we speak about, and how they want to see the future of Syria, and Saudi Arabia that wants to be a dominant regional power. And it's not by chance that Saudi Arabia was brokering the border issue between Lebanon and Syria from one hand, and the Turks, on the other hand, wanted to deploy to an airbase inside Syria, and suddenly we hear that T4 was attacked in the east side of Syria. There's nothing here is by chance. Things are happening because there are two powers here: the Muslim Brotherhood power, which is Qatar and the Turks, and HTS as the front line of that. What kind of future is there for Syria from that side? Or Saudi Arabia, which has figured out how it wants to see a future, a better future for the region. And that is what we want to see coming up from the south through its showing its influence inside Jordan, inside Syria, and inside Lebanon. That's what we want to see in the next few months, shaping much more than we want from the north. For Israel to have a NATO member with such declared alienation towards Israel is something which would be super complicated for us in the near term, and we don't want to poke NATO in any way. No one wants to see Israel versus NATO. There's no such thing in anyone's mind. So deconflicting this in a way is super important in very, very careful steps that we will see in the near future.
Mr. Billingsley, before we move to Yemen, I'd like to hear your take on the NATO angle, which we heard General Hossein just mention. Of course, NATO itself is also not very happy with Turkey, at least not with the manner in which it's behaving. How can this issue be resolved?
I think it's incumbent on the Trump administration to rein the Turks in. But as you point out, it is quite complicated because, of course, the Turks are another independent variable when it comes to Russia's war against Ukraine, the Black Sea, and Turkey's own interests in seeing that Russia does not further expand its territorial control over that region. So in this case, I think, and I understand your own point, but Turkey here, of course, while NATO is operating in a much more historical Ottoman mode that we've seen them exercise that interest over northern Syria and over the Kurdish regions repeatedly over many centuries, actually.
Absolutely. Well, yesterday there was an incident in which the Iranian proxy Ansar Allah, which is dominated, of course, by the Houthi tribe in Yemen, launched two ballistic missiles in the direction of Israel. Both missiles were intercepted by the United States. A THAAD battery basically took them out. Subsequently, the Houthis have launched also dozens of various types of projectiles, including unmanned aerial vehicles, cruise missiles, and others in the direction of American vessels in the Red Sea. And the U.S., thankfully, Central Command, its maritime component, NAVCENT, intercepted all those projectiles and confronted subsequently also this terror organization quite heftily, eliminating at least 58 of its senior leadership. Dozens others were also eliminated in the course of last night's attacks, to include over 100 targets. Mr. Billingsley?
Yes, I haven't checked my Signal chat group lately to see what the latest war plans are, but I think we're, of course, here in the United States, there's been an effort to turn that into a major political matter, but it really ignores the fact that the Trump administration has been decisive and has been highly intense in actually targeting what should have been targeted for years under the Biden administration. And that is both not just the Houthi leadership, the decision-making apparatus, but also a willingness to strike targets where we know Iranian Quds Force operatives are located.
Absolutely. Just on the point of Signal, all jokes aside, I asked a friend who is quite close to Robert, would he have done the same in the event that Blinken was Secretary of State and Biden was president? And he told me point blank, absolutely not. That would have never happened. The leakage subsequently, he would have told them ahead of time, look, you added me by mistake. You intended to add the deputy, Robert, rather than me. So how about you fix that before any issue arises? Unfortunately, this double standard has to do with ethics, and that is something that the Atlantic needs to think very hard on with regard to what is the purpose of journalism, if not, informing the public on what really matters and taking care of the rest. But
Jonathan, he's not a journalist; he's an activist. He's a hardcore activist. Let's be clear. And the Atlantic is not a journalistic outlet; it's a propaganda mouthpiece.
Yes, sir. Well, Colonel, your take on Yemen?
I'm not going to relate to what you were just talking about now, but shifting gears about Yemen, I think expectation management is very important. Look, even Israel, full force of the IDF in complex arenas like Lebanon and Gaza, you can degrade, you can take out strategic capabilities, but actually taking out a threat totally is something else. And I don't think even that's the intention of the US administration. We're not talking about regime change in Yemen. And the way they operate also, everything dug underground, very dispersed. Reminds me even of the Scud missiles coming from Iraq in the first Gulf War. You have this shoot and scoot tactic where something erects in the middle of the desert, shoots and disappears. So it's very difficult to eliminate. Still, I think we do see a massive effort here. You see actions connected to words and to policy in a very good way. From what I see, it's a serious widespread attack. Look at the munitions also being used. A wide array of munitions, a lot of them standoff, but some are pretty close. And a lot of our friends and our partners are doing very hard work in order to take care of this effort. I would just say expectation management. It's not that tomorrow there's a white flag in Sana'a.
Indeed. With that being said, there are plenty of tribes that seek to overthrow the Houthis in Yemen, and there's quite some chatter about that within Yemen. General Lausanne, I'd like to hear your take on that.
Yeah, military decapitation is something that we will see, military and political in a way, because everything is mixed and the Houthis are sort of mixed, just like Hezbollah. Political arm of Hezbollah is sort of a weird thing. They are a terror organization, and so are the Houthis. So decapitation of the command and control, both the military side and the political leadership, is exactly the type of campaign that I was expecting to see, and I'm very glad that the United States shifted gear and is full force. The Houthis poked the eagle, and the eagle is now flying over Yemen, and it will do everything. It's not supposed to capitulate in a day. Again, managing expectations here, as Reuven mentioned, is very important. But at the end, because you cannot run after the last missile, or whatever type it is, the right military strategy is to go after the command and control, just as Israel did with Hezbollah, in parallel with greatly degrading the launching of missiles capability. That's exactly how you do it. It might take days and weeks, but I think now that the administration has changed, there's CENTCOM has all of what it needs. The assets are in place, the aircraft carriers, the B-2s are there. And again, the Houthis poke the eagle, but Washington is showing Iran it's exactly how it would look when it turns northeast. So I think it is a very important show of force, and the Houthis should learn from that. I'm not sure they will.
I doubt they will. Just to point out that the brother of the leader of the Houthis, Abdel Malik al-Houthi, his brother Abdel Halik al-Houthi, was among those eliminated, which is, of course, a devastating blow to this terror organization, which is of a tribal construct, not a clan construct like the Levantine type of terror organizations. It has a significant nuance to it. But Mr. Billingsley, the Iranians continue to supply the Houthis with weaponry, and irrespective of the U.S. Statements with this regard, particularly those of President Donald Trump.
Yeah, Iran is playing with fire here, and the B-2s, which reportedly have now been rebased to Diego Garcia, are there not for the Houthis. They're there to send a very clear message to Tehran that that President Trump is serious about both his cease and desist order and his requirement that Iran step back from the nuclear weapons threshold as it hovers its foot over that doorstep.
Colonel Ben Shalom, time on target for those B-2s is a lot shorter if they would have been sent from the United States.
I think it's very clear that this is not only rhetoric and not only threats, but also from Israel's capabilities to the United States accumulation of force. And I would even say the timeline that we see now of nuclear capabilities, it's shorter than ever. Things are converging. So it's not that I think it's going to happen tonight or tomorrow, but it's certainly on the table and can easily be used. And also look at the entire arena. Maybe we thought that this war, this multi-front war, was going to the ceasefire phase and arrangement, agreements, understanding. It looked like all arenas may be shifting back to full force.
Indeed. General Rosen, according to Strategic Command in the United States, in their Senate hearing to the Armed Services Committee, General Cotton mentioned that the time it takes to build a nuclear device for the Iranians went down from 10 to 15 days to 1 week.
Yeah, I think the clock, the Iranians are really shortening the time. The clock is ticking in a faster pace in that sense for the international community to deal with Iran. I won't say once and for all. I hate that term because nothing is once and for all. But for this, for the mullahs having nuclear capability, whatever that means, it doesn't matter if it's really the nuclear capability, the full nuclear capability, but just the fact that Iran has amassed so much uranium that they are capable, enriched uranium, that they are capable now of moving to the next phase, and God knows when, will build something that will actually make them capable of threatening from Europe to other countries 360 degrees around Iran, is just unacceptable. It's just something that the world cannot live with. And I'm glad that the B-2s are in Diego Garcia, because this is the I would say deterrence now it flies stealth. This is how you build deterrence. This is how you send a very, very strong whisper. It's almost a roar from the United States that this is coming. And you have to pay attention also that Israel is also preparing. So all of the bricks are now in the right place. The United States is there, and Israel is ready, and the corridor in Syria is open, and the air defenses are down. I don't know why they are. It might go until the last minute. It might turn into negotiations. That's how it is until the last minute. But it might also turn into a huge onslaught on Iran, on the nuclear project, mostly, maybe on some economic capabilities, just to have the maximum pressure really be a maximum pressure. One of the oil, Bandar Abbas, or the oil refineries or whatnot. But the situation now is on Iran's doorstep.
So, Mr. Billingsley, you have not much time left for this, but you also served as President Trump's special envoy for arms control. To what degree does the current sort of standoff, it's not a standoff as we mentioned last time, but the current state of play, what does it signal to all other adversaries globally?
We're in a very dangerous moment with respect to the global non-proliferation regime, the NPT, both because we have certain U.S. allies starting to make noises about whether they should begin to develop their own nuclear deterrent. Here I'm talking about both Poland and South Korea. We obviously should be watching Ukraine very carefully as well, since they, as we all know, gave up their nuclear weapons in exchange for security guarantees that were never respected or honored. And then you have the Iranians driving forward with their program. And of course, they're being watched incredibly closely by, among others, Saudi Arabia. So it is essential that Iran be deprived of a nuclear capability, whether through diplomacy, and there I have some doubts, particularly given the mullahs and their behavior and their track record on agreements, or through force.
Mr. Billingsley, Colonel Ben Shalom, and General Wazen, thank you so very much for all of your valuable insights. I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition from here in Jerusalem, wishing you a Shabbat Shalom.